Welcome to a time without hurry. Let us settle into the quiet and explore a topic that often slips past unnoticed. Soap, a simple bar, sometimes white, sometimes translucent, sometimes scented, sometimes not. It sits patiently beside your sink, ready to lather and rinse, yet few give it much thought. Tonight, we will so. What exactly is soap? Soap, at its most humble core, is the result of a process known as saponification, a word that may sound quite grand, but is simply the name for what happens when a fat or oil meets a strong alkaline substance, usually something like lye, which is a form of sodium hydroxide. The fat, be it from an animal or a plant, and the lye, when mixed carefully and patiently, undergo a quiet transformation. They combine to become something new. The fat no longer remains a fat. The lye, so caustic and dangerous on its own, becomes softened in its new form, and together they become soap. This process, though it sounds chemical and perhaps complex, is ancient. It has no hurry. It does not shout. It takes its time. In its simplest form, soap is made up of fatty acid salts. These are the molecules that gently cling to both water and oil. One end of a soap molecule loves water. We call it hydrophilic. The other end, it loves oil and grease. It's lipophilic. This dual nature gives soap its quiet strength. It can grab onto grime and oil and help lift it away when you rinse with water. A silent helper, lifting what no longer serves and washing it down the drain. Soap is not a detergent. While both clean, they are not the same. Detergents are synthetic, often made from petroleum or chemical compounds. Soap, in its purest form, is natural. It is made, not manufactured. The soap you may see in stores today may contain more than just fat and lye. It may be adorned with scents like lavender, rose, or sandalwood. It may wear colors, gentle pastels, or bright swirls, but beneath its appearance, it is still soap. Its purpose is calm and clear, to clean, quietly, without ceremony. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply works, then rests. And, in understanding this, we begin to see why soap, though ordinary, is one of humanity's most persistent companions. For thousands of years, in baths and kitchens, in hospitals and homes, on battlefields and in royal palaces, soap has quietly served. Now, with that gentle introduction, we'll travel back, far back, to when the very first forms of soap began to appear, born from ashes, clay pots, and the need to wash away the day. But for now, let that thought settle. You are clean, you are still, and the story continues softly in the next chapter. Asterisk, now that we understand what soap is, the quiet bond between fat and lye, let us go back, gently, to where it all began. There was no factory, no brand, no lavender scent. There was only fire, ash, water, and the leftover fat from a cooked animal. Asterisk, no one truly knows who discovered soap first. It may not have been a discovery in the usual sense, not like a flash of brilliance. More likely, it was an accident, a soft, unnoticed one. A bit of rain may have fallen on a pile of animal remains near a fire pit. Ashes from the fire may have mingled with animal fat and dripped into the muddy earth. And somewhere, someone may have noticed that the mixture created a slightly slippery substance, one that made hands feel cleaner after rinsing in the river. And so, soap began. Quietly, in these earliest times, before writing, before wheels. Soap was not something people made intentionally. It was more of a side effect. a byproduct of cooking and fire, of survival and routine. The ash from hardwood fires contains potassium carbonate, and when combined with water, it forms a mild alkaline solution, similar to lye. When this solution came into contact with animal fat, the drippings from meat or marrow bones, saponification could occur. Slowly, naturally. This early soap wasn't stored in boxes or cut into perfect bars. It wasn't white or perfumed. It was coarse, soft, often grey or brown in colour. And it smelled earthy, smoky, a little like the fire itself, a little like the hunt. But it had a purpose. People began to notice that it helped remove grease from cooking pots, or left the skin feeling less coated after long days of labour. It wasn't used daily. It wasn't even used often. Cleanliness, as we know it, was not yet a cultural expectation, but the seed was planted. The idea of washing, and slowly, very slowly, across distant lands and cultures, early peoples began to form their own rudimentary soap mixtures. In Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, clay tablets, dating back to 2800 BCE, mention a substance made from oils and alkali. It wasn't called soap, but it behaved like one. The Babylonians, in their orderly cuneiform, listed animal fats, wood ash, and water in what might be one of the world's earliest recipes. They may have boiled their mixture in clay pots, stirring slowly with wooden paddles. No one rushed. The world moved differently then. The soap they created was thick, heavy, stored in jars, not shaped for beauty or pleasure. It was used more for laundering cloth than cleaning the body, but it worked. It removed oils. It left behind less residue. It made fabric feel fresher, lighter in the hand. And in Egypt, the story continued. Ancient Egyptians are said to have bathed frequently. They valued purity. Cleanliness was associated with spiritual preparation, especially for rituals and offerings. Hieroglyphs and wall paintings from tombs depict basins, servants, and what appears to be a lathered substance, likely a primitive soap or a clan fat paste. Some recipes combined animal fat with alkaline salts harvested from dry lake beds. Egyptian doctors even recommended soap-like pastes for skin diseases. The line between cleaning and healing was thin. These early soaps were not used to sell beauty. They weren't packaged or advertised. No one argued over brands. They simply existed, helpful, basic, unadorned. They were functional, like the stone tools and woven baskets of the day. Soap did not shout for attention. It served as for the tools. They were simple. Clay bowls, ash gathered from burned hardwoods, fat rendered over a fire, a wooden stick, and time. Always time. Soap required waiting. The mixture of ash water and fat took days, sometimes weeks, to cure. The early makers likely didn't understand the science, the bonds, the molecules, the alkaline reactions, but they didn't need to. They saw results. A pot was cleaner, a cloth brighter, a hand less greasy, and so they made more. In the ancient world, everything had a place. Fire was for cooking, water was for drinking, ashes were waste. But slowly, through gentle observation, even the ashes found a use. From the refuse of the fire, something cleansing emerged. It is a quiet truth that many of humanity's most useful discoveries began with what others discarded. Soap was born in the ashes, in the fat, in the patient hands of those who watched, who stirred, who waited, and now, with this slow beginning, we are ready to travel forward, to places where soap gained status, where it moved beyond accident and into the hands of dedicated makers into the great cities of the ancient world. But for now, breathe and rest. The lather will return in the next chapter. Asterisk, asterisk. We now journey deeper into time, into civilizations where soap moved from an accidental discovery into something more deliberate, more consistent, more understood. The Babylonians were among the first to leave behind written records, soft markings pressed into clay tablets that endured for thousands of years. In one such record, dated around 2800 BCE, they listed the use of water, alkali, and cassia oil, likely used in rituals or cleaning. They didn't call it soap as we know the word today, but it was the same process, mixing fats and ash-derived alkaline water to produce a cleansing substance. The Babylonians were methodical people. Their soap wasn't for luxury or scent. It was mostly used for cleaning textiles, wool, linen, and other cloth. Clean cloth was important for offerings to the gods and ceremonial purity. They stored soap in simple clay pots, labeled in wedge-shaped cuneiform script, a script that speaks softly across the centuries. Not far away, in the dry heat of the Egyptian desert, a similar story unfolded. The Egyptians, with their elaborate temples and rituals, placed a high value on cleanliness. Bathing was not merely a personal act, it was spiritual. Priests bathed several times a day to remain ritually pure. The Nile, which carried life and silt and scent, was their bathing ground, and beside it they developed a kind of soap using animal and vegetable fats mixed with alkaline natron salts, harvested from the dry beds of ancient lakes. In tombs of nobility, vessels have been found that once held ointments and pastes, some believed to be early soaps, used for cleansing the skin before burial. In medical papyri, recipes are recorded for substances that likely had cleansing properties, including combinations of fat, alkaline salts, and herbs. Soap, for them, was medicine. It was purification. It was preparation for both this life and the next. As centuries passed, soap quietly spread west, and so we arrive at Rome. Our Rome known more for its baths than its soap. But both coexisted, though one took the spotlight. Public baths were grand, social places where citizens gathered not just to cleanse, but to converse, to rest, to connect. But the act of cleaning before entering the bath often involved the use of scrapers called strigils, curved tools used to remove oil and dirt from the skin. Still, some Romans did use a form of soap, particularly those in Gaul and Germanic provinces, where fat and ash soaps were more common. A Roman historian, Pliny the Elder, writing in the 1st century CE, mentions soap in his Natural History. He notes it was a Gallic invention, used to keep hair shiny and perhaps clean the skin. He describes both hard and soft forms of it. Soap, for many Romans, was not an everyday item, but it was known. The Roman version of soap was often made from goat tallow and beech tree ash, then cured and dried. It may have been rough, grey, or brown, and carried the scent of the barnyard. Not perfumed, not soft, but practical. Interestingly, Pompeii, the city preserved in volcanic ash, has revealed archaeological traces of a soap factory. Their jars were found with residues of substances matching saponified fat. It appears soap was not only made, but sold, suggesting a quiet industry existed beneath the glamour of Rome's grand columns. As the Roman Empire expanded, so too did knowledge. Soap traveled across borders, from Gaul to Britain, from Africa to Asia Minor. But it did not become universal. Not yet. In many places, people still used oil and sand to scrub the body, or clay, which absorbs grease. Soap was optional, not essential, but it had begun to take root. In homes, in workshops, in rituals, a quiet companion to cleanliness. And though few sang soap's praises, it was always there. Silent, unnoticed, useful in the centuries that followed. As Rome declined and new powers rose, soap would take on new forms shaped by religion, trade, and craft. In the next chapter, we will cross into the Middle Ages, where soap finds itself at a crossroads between superstition and science, between scarcity and necessity, between East and West. But, for now, let your mind rest. The clay has dried, the fat has cured. The story continues, gently asterisk, as the Roman Empire dissolved into fragments, and the ancient cities quieted beneath time's dust. Soap did not vanish. It lingered in potters' workshops, in herbal scrolls, in the careful hands of those who continued to craft it by feel rather than formula. In the Middle Ages, soap began to mature. It shifted from a rough necessity into a craft, a quiet trade, a guarded knowledge passed from family to apprentice, from city to city. Our first stop is the city of Aleppo in modern-day Syria. Aleppo was no ordinary place. It was a crossroads of cultures, Roman, Byzantine, Arab, Persian, and somewhere in its shaded courtyards and stone workshops, a new kind of soap was born, Aleppo soap. This soap was made from olive oil, water, and lye, just as before, but now it included something new, laurel oil pressed from the berries of the laurel tree. Laurel oil gave the soap a slightly greenish hue, a rich texture, and a subtle, earthy aroma. It was believed to have antiseptic and soothing properties, and it marked the soap as special. Aleppo. Soap was cooked in great vats, stirred for days with wooden paddles. The mixture was then poured out onto flat stone floors, spread evenly with long-handled tools, and left to cool. When the surface had firmed, it was cut, not with steel machines, but with strings or wireframes into neat, rectangular blocks. But it did not go to market right away. The soap blocks were then stacked into towers in dark, ventilated rooms and left to age for 6 to 9 months. During this time, the green color faded from the outside as the soap cured, forming a beige crust. But inside, the core remained a gentle olive green, a quiet reminder of its origin. Aleppo soap became prized. Traders carried it westward along the Silk Road, across deserts, past seas, into the hands of merchants in North Africa and Southern Europe. The craft traveled with it, and so we arrive in Spain, in a region known as Castile, the Iberian Peninsula, with its long coastline and warm sun, had a plentiful supply of olive oil, the golden ingredient of Mediterranean life. As Arab influence touched the Spanish lands, so too did soap-making traditions. By the 12th and 13th centuries, Spanish artisans began to craft their own variant, Castile soap. Castile soap used pure olive oil, with no laurel, and was often white, or pale ivory. It was firmer than Aleppo soap, sometimes more brittle, and carried a mild scent, the clean, subtle aroma of olive. It became highly valued for its gentle qualities, especially for washing linens and the skin of infants. Unlike the coarse soaps of earlier times, Castile soap was refined, wrapped, and traded. It was shipped across Europe, sometimes labeled with seals of quality. In cities like Marseille, Venice, and Naples, similar techniques began to emerge, all inspired, in part, by the Eastern methods that had quietly journeyed west. In the Middle Ages, soap was not yet for everyone. It remained a luxury item. Only the wealthy could afford the best olive oil soaps. Common people often used coarse soaps made from animal fats and wood ash, or no soap at all. Water, sand, vinegar, or rough cloths were more typical for daily cleaning. Even the church had mixed views on bathing. In some periods, cleanliness was seen as vanity. In others, it was encouraged as godliness. Monasteries sometimes made soap for medicinal use, but bathing for pleasure was occasionally frowned upon. Soap hovered in this strange in-between space, not entirely accepted, not fully rejected, but it survived. Throughout the Middle Ages, soap makers began to form guilds, closed groups of artisans who protected the secrets of their craft. Recipes were handed down carefully, altered slightly over time. Ingredients might be adjusted based on season, region, or availability. The proportions of lighter oil were learned by feel, not measurement. Batches varied. Mistakes were common, but over time, the craft sharpened. Castile soap became a standard. It inspired soaps made in France, Italy, and England. The word Castile itself became synonymous with high-quality soap, even when made elsewhere. Soaps in this period were not yet perfumed. That would come later. For now, they were clean, basic, unadorned, and yet, quietly, they were changing the way people thought about bathing. By the 15th century, soap making was no longer an obscure process. It had markets, it had trade routes, it had names and places. From the laurel-scented vaults of Aleppo to the pale bars of Castile, soap was slowly becoming more than a chemical reaction. It was becoming an industry. And so we move forward, into a time of curiosity and invention, into the Renaissance, where the science of soap making began to emerge, and new discoveries brought us closer to the soaps we know today. But for now, rest. Let the olive groves sway in the wind. Let the soap cure quietly in the dark. The next chapter will wait, as soap always does.